Welcome to another edition of Relocating to Disney. Here we are on the shores of Lake Ontario on a wintry afternoon. So, a couple of things I wanted to talk about today. Quick update, we got our second mortgage pre-approval in. It's arrived, we're approved, so that's helpful. Talk a little bit quickly here about schools in Florida. I'm coming from New York State. New York State generally has the best schools in the nation, some of the best schools. The most expensive schools, but some of the best schools. Florida, spending on schools is much lower. And as a result of that, the services aren't quite up to par of where we are in New York. So we had to decide that we want to pull our kids out of school and go to Florida, or let them finish school here in New York. And it was a tough decision because we first started talking about going to Florida 9 years ago. So to wait all those years was kind of a tough decision. In the end, we decided to wait. The services up here in New York are far better than the services that we could have gotten in Florida. Now, I've heard a lot of different stories. People have had good success in Florida schools. Some haven't. You got to shop around. You got to know what you're looking for and be informed. Now, we had friends who went to Florida. They put their daughter in a private school. It worked out pretty good. So private schools might be the option to consider. But anyways, on the forums and everything, a lot of people are asking about schools. Just wanted to bring up my opinion. We decided to wait, and I think it was probably a good decision for us to have waited. There's a podcast out there. It's called Moving to Florida Show Podcast. And if you've got a Google device or something like that, real easy to find it. You just say, hey Google, play the Moving to Florida Show Podcast, and it'll start playing it. It's pretty good. If you want to go back a couple episodes, you just say, hey Google, play the previous episode. Real simple. Alexa, very similar. So you can use your favorite podcast tool if you want. But anyways, I want to give them credit because I'm going to cite some information that they provided. And the information is trends on houses. And these are trends that they have seen and they reported. And I encourage you to go check it out. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that I agree with. So an interesting issue has developed thanks to the pandemic. And I don't think it was just the pandemic that has brought this up. I think that just the changing business world brought this up. And that's work from home. And because people are working from home, they need more of a home. They need a bigger house. They need those houses to have more things. If you're going to be in the house all day long, day after day after day, you're going to want certain things with it. So the houses that are being built today compared to 10 years ago are somewhat different as a result of all of this. And so what they've identified is that more people are going for single family homes instead of condos because they need the extra space. They're also looking for getting an office or a den, maybe converting a bedroom into an office or a den, or having that office or den in the house, which makes sense. If you're working from home, you need a place to work. If the kids are homeschooling or not going to school, they need a place where they can do their Zoom sessions. Oh, that makes sense. People want bigger homes. That makes sense. If you're home all day, day after day after day, you need bigger homes, right? They want yards. They want to go outside and do things with their kids. They're home a lot. They're not traveling a lot. They can't get out and go places. So have your staycation and do things at home. And to have a good staycation, you want a pool. So that seems to be a pretty big trend. Although, from shopping around in Florida, I don't see many houses being built that have pools. I'll get into that here in just a moment of why that probably is. But they're seeing a desire for pools. Now, just because there's a desire for pools doesn't mean people are getting them, right? Just like they found there's a desire for people who want to live on the lake or have a water view of some sort. If you're home all day, you're not going to go to the beach, you're not going to go on vacations, you want to be able to sit outside and have a nice view. Well, there's huge premiums if you want to have a lake view. And unless you've got a huge house budget, you're probably not going to be able to afford that lake view. So people want these things doesn't necessarily mean they're getting them. Oh, what else are they looking for? Accommodation for pets. I'm surprised that's a new trend. It would seem like, you know, people have had pets for thousands of years. Why is it suddenly in Florida something new? But they want houses to accommodate their pets. So if you got a cat, you need someplace to put the litter box. If you have a dog, you might want to have a wash station when you come into the house so you can wash the dog off. People are looking for those things now. 3-car garages. Okay, a lot of gyms are shut down, or maybe you don't feel comfortable going to a gym, so you're going to put a gym in your garage. That kind of makes sense. There's a lot of other things you can use for that 3rd-car garage for. Houses in Florida, they don't have a basement, so you can use it for storage. For me, I'm looking forward to having some kind of a workshop out there and put my saws, my tools. So 3-car garages have a lot of advantages, and according to the podcast, they're under high demand. They're hot right now. Gourmet kitchens. People aren't going out to eat as much as they used to, thanks to the pandemic again. So they are staying at home and cooking. And if they're staying home and cooking, maybe you want that kitchen, the gourmet kitchen. For me, I want an outdoor kitchen. I want a kitchen on the back patio. I want to be outside cooking, not indoors. Vacation kind of amenities, because you're not going on vacation. So that's the pool. That's maybe buying someplace that has a gym, or you know, your lakefront view. You know, you want something that feels like you're on vacation, because you're probably not going to too many places during this pandemic. Multi-generational homes. So I don't think this is a pandemic thing. Maybe it is, I don't know. There's people who have their parents living with them, like I do here in New York. I've got an in-law apartment attached to my house. And there's also situations where kids are staying home a lot longer. They go to college, they build up a bunch of debt, and then they don't have money to strike out on their own and get a house and be able to afford things. And maybe the job market, especially during the pandemic, isn't all that cool. So kids are staying home. Because they're staying home, you might have 3 generations in your house, like I do. Okay? So people are increasingly looking for multi-generation houses. The different generations want to have their own little compartments in the house. Yeah, it's great to come together, but it's also great for everybody to have their own areas as well. That was just some things they noticed. That they also brought up that new construction is hot right now. And they said new construction is hot because people, they want to break in the house themselves. But that's not the reason new construction is hot. The reason new construction is hot is because the home inventories are so low. You can't go out and buy a house. I mean, I've heard stories, I've seen houses selling 24, 48 hours. But beyond that, if you want to buy a house and you're not down there, you got to do it sight unseen, bidding wars, all of that. So it's very tough to buy an existing house. So to get around that, people are having to buy new construction because it's the only thing in a lot of cases that's available to them. Something else, let's talk a little bit about pools. Now, because there's such a flood of people going to Florida, something like 1,000 people a day. And a lot of these people are showing up wanting a pool. Because you think of a Florida house, you want a pool, right? There's such a high demand for pools, but there aren't more pool makers. And also, thanks to the pandemic, a lot of the materials needed to make a pool are constrained. So as a result, it's taking 6 to 8 months to get a pool. Now, I'm thinking in my case, I get into the house in August. It could be April 2022 before I have a pool. And that's just thinking about that, that's crazy. But that's the environment that we're in right now. So I went to the forums and I said, hey, what are some costs in Florida that I might not be seeing here in New York? So yeah, here in New York, I have to pay somebody to plow my driveway, but I don't have to do that in Florida, so that's cool. And so the people on these Facebook groups and the forums came back with a couple of ideas, really good ideas. And they said if you have a pool, paying somebody to care for it is about $80 a month, maybe a little more. Now my wife says, don't worry about it. She's gonna maintain the pool. But I could tell you that once she goes back to work, she's not gonna wanna frick with a pool. So we'll be paying somebody to come and do the maintenance on the pool. Or I'll be the one doing it, more likely. Next, pest control. So if you're in Florida, there's bugs. The only way to really deal with that is with pest control. $65 a month is what I'm hearing. Next, lawn care, okay? So you don't have that big of a lawn, and it's a pain in the butt to have to go mow it, your little strip of grass, because they cram these houses so close together. So what a lot of people do is they just pay somebody to come mow it. And I've got $120 a month, somebody said, to get your lawn mowed. Prices vary, of course, it just depends, but this is some recommendations that people put out there. Some other costs to consider when you're trying to build your budget. You got to pay for tolls. And something else is the water conditioner. So the water in the Orlando area is horrible. And the way people get around that is they get a water conditioner, and there's an upfront cost to the water conditioner, and then you have to pay to maintain it and keep it going. Some other things people have mentioned, tolls are higher and insurance is higher. And I've heard people go back and forth on this. They say, yeah, my insurance went up, but then I called Geico and I got a good rate. Some other people say, I come from a city and the insurance is high in the city already, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So it all depends on people's different situations, but that was something to hear about. And then insurance, you know, there's hurricanes and wind damage and things like that, so home insurance tends to be more expensive. So that was some costs that were shared. Well, okay, that's today's update. I think I'm going to head back inside, get some coffee. It's pretty cold out here. So thank you for tuning in. Have a nice day.